Okay, so welcome to Skoolie San Diego.
Until we come up with a better name.
Correct. Which is actually one of the problems which we've been trying to overcome. It's hard to come up with a good name. We feel like a name will stick, and when it sticks, it'll stick. We're hoping it doesn't stick with anything, though. So, what is Skoolie San Diego? COVID 2020, March.
Yes.
Everyone gets stuck inside.
Yes.
Our 17-year-old starts going stir crazy. Mr. Tyler
This one, yes.
gets bored and starts watching YouTube, and I think you saw, what was the Rolling Vistas?
Yeah.
They were a pretty influential group, and he says, I've been thinking about this. It was a few months later.
Yes.
So June-ish.
June is when I had the idea, and I didn't actually say anything till
Okay,
2
so-
months
So
later.
He
I think
stewed on it
August-
for a
August,
month.
I think is when
He stewed on it, and
Yep.
this young man who does not like to do homework, who does not like to do school, comes up to Mom and I and says, hey, I've made this PowerPoint presentation.
Yes.
I want to do a demonstration for you and convince you of something.
And this PowerPoint included a spreadsheet that had all of the material, well, not all the materials,
it
a
wasn't
lot of the
included.
materials all written out, where to find them, cost, and some resources for where to actually buy a bus.
He had a projected budget. He said, hey, it's going to cost less than $20,000, and I called baloney. But we looked and
Research.
started doing, I back-checked his research, and I'm like, well, if we can find a bus for $5,000, we could probably do this for somewhere near there.
Because it turns out at 17, somebody else had an idea
Yeah,
to
somehow
build a
he,
bus.
somehow he channeled my young self as well. Because when I was little, a long time ago, I wanted to do the same thing, but we didn't have the internet, and this never would have happened.
I'd like to add that I also didn't know that at the time.
No
No.
one knew it because I never really told anybody. But 40 years later, here we
Yes.
are.
Here we are
So
with a bus.
anyway, so he had done all the research. He sat us down, showed us the PowerPoint, and we were kind of impressed. So of course I said no. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm like, you're crazy.
I don't actually think you said no.
No, right
The
away I
wheels
did.
started turning.
You,
What?
you never said no.
You never actually said
Okay,
See,
so
story changes.
first off, if we're gonna do a channel, you have to know I'm a sailor, so I
Yes.
like to tell my
no. The
stories.
stories change based on the
Yes.
audience.
So-
So he never actually said no.
Regardless,
And that's when I started to worry
wheels started
that a
turning,
bus was going to show up in front of our house.
and towards the end of August, we had contact with a dealer in New Mexico,
The
whom Tyler had
dealer's
found.
name was
Lone Star Truck Group, I think it was.
Lone Star Truck
Yeah.
Group out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Tyler says, hey, these are the best deals I can find. I didn't believe him because I thought we could get a better deal. So we did an auction. I actually signed up, was going to pay $5,000 for a bus on a old used Navy auction, the GSA auctions where they get rid of old buses. But its bidding went up to $20,000, and so
so that was a hard no. But
yeah, and it was a smaller bus, and we'd actually started thinking about the design of a smaller bus by this time.
Yeah.
But we didn't get that bus, so looked around, and the only thing that was a good deal was this place in.
came back to the one in New Mexico.
It seems like there's a lot of good deals in the East Coast,
Oh yes.
because a lot of these other schoolie peeps are back in the East Coast, and they're all finding $2,000-$3,000 buses.
Oh,
Well, that ain't happening on the West Coast in 2020.
apparently not.
We talked to Paul, the salesman at Lone Star, and I said, hey man, when can I come get this bus? So he said, well...
Not get, look at it.
Look
Yes. Oh, I think he already had in his mind we were going to get
yeah,
it.
we're
We
not gonna,
had to go look at it.
yeah, you're not going to drive 500 miles just to look at something and not buy it. But
Yeah.
So he arranged and he came in on his weekend. I said, we're going to be there on Saturday around noon. We used Tyler's driving estimates. He estimated the trip and said, we'll stop here, there. And I, of course, said, no. Well, probably this is what's really going to happen. But funny
His
thing,
estimates
all the
were right
weird
on.
things happen, and his estimates turned out perfectly. And we show up at around noon, driving a rental car because we rented a car.
In
One way?
anticipation of bringing a bus home.
Well, if it didn't work out, we would just
Yeah.
rent the car and bring it back home. No,
Right.
not a big deal.
I actually found the bus on a website, commercialtrucktrader.com. So it's got a bunch of random things.
Okay. So
Okay.
commercialtrucktradr.com.
And that's what
It's
led
next,
us
too.
to,
Lone Star.
got it.
Right. Yeah, so we did rent a car. We were trying to, how do we get there? Do we fly? I didn't really want to fly and get stuck. So we just rented a car one way through budget, and it was not that expensive. And the hardest part was deciding what to do with the rental car. So we did a one way, and that's the way it worked out. We went to the dealer, looked at the bus, bought the bus, and then she and the boys drove on to drop the car off at the airport, Albuquerque airport, and I followed them in the bus, and we picked it up.
It was a little scary dropping off the car, not knowing if the bus was gonna get us home or not.
Okay, well, when we started it at the dealership, it sounded, not knowing
It sounded
anything
real
about
nice.
the diesel engine,
Yeah.
it sounded
It sounded
Good.
good, but buying something that you don't know all the ins and outs of, it's a little scary to drive across the desert.
Yeah, so that was
we were
the
a little
deal.
nervous, but
We were supposed to talk about the pros of buying. That was a real nice deal. He actually, I sent him half the money with a balance transfer or a electronic transfer before we went. I guess earnest money, and then when we got there, we paid the rest off. That was interesting because I just put it on a card because it was the easiest way. But someone at the fraud department said, "Why is someone trying to spend $2,000 in New Mexico?" And so we had a hard time getting that to go through.
yes.
But it did go through, no
Yes.
big deal.
Yeah.
Issues at the dealer. It was hot. That was the issue.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
insurance.
the transaction itself went really smooth, so the salesman was awesome.
So that's one of the better things about going through a dealership than just off of
Yeah.
Facebook Marketplace or anything else.
Okay, so I hadn't thought to do the research for the insurance before we got there, but I figured, because usually I use USAA, which usually for almost all transactions is instant and easy. And I called them and said, I want to put a bus on my insurance policy. And they're like, no. They don't do anything but cars, which is fine. So they sent me to their they out-contract to another company. And the other company said, sure, we do RVs. So I described my RV as an International 3800, and she looked in her database and couldn't find anything on International. She's like, what? I'm like, well, it was a bus. It's now an RV, technically. And she said, oh, we don't do conversions, so sorry.
Oh.
So we were out of luck. So we, maybe we need to bleep this, but we drove from Phoenix to here with no insurance.
Okay, here's the thing, most people do that.
Well, plus the other thing is, I as a driver am insured, so we just would have lost the
We
bus
didn't
if
know,
we'd have been in an
we didn't
accident.
know how to handle that, so,
Right.
but the bus needed to come home,
Right.
so.
Let's follow that little thread down. We actually, State Farm is happy to insure in California, is happy to insure a converted bus. And our local dealer, we can probably get their link if you want, but she's been amazing. And we've now got a fully insured, we have like comprehensive, but we're fully insured to drive this thing. So
Yes.
with like $1 million of coverage, it's like a normal RV. So cool. So go State Farm.
Yay.
And let's see. So what about this bus? Well, as you can see, this is a
12 windows.
There's 12 windows, which is a standard unit of measure for a used school bus.
Yeah,
So that translates
Is
to
it really
30.
measured by windows?
Yeah, that's
yeah,
it.
it's
Oh.
pretty common.
Did not
Yeah.
know that.
This one, overall length, 37 feet. Gross vehicle weight, 33,000 pounds. The front is heavier than the back.
For now.
For now, until we add
For now, yeah. Well, you have to figure the vehicle weight with what we said, 12 times 2, so 24, and then 2 people per each seat is 48. and let's say 200 pounds per teenager, now 100 pounds per teenager.
150.
Whatever. Anyway, 10,000 pounds worth of student. So
Yeah.
we're probably going to come under that because we took out all the steel lining, we took out all the seats, we took out all the rubber, and if we put enough back in to counteract that weight, I think we'll.
Yeah.
Our heaviest thing is going to be our tanks of water.
Yeah.
Which will be about 1,000 gallons or 1,000 pounds of fresh water.
Yeah.
So, specs, powered by
That's you.
an international T444E, which stands for a turbocharged 444 cubic inch, which is 7.2 maybe liters, and E is electronically controlled. So, I didn't know much about the buses, but as it turns out, it's a underpowered but reliable engine and should last forever, and hasn't given us any problems with the engine. We've had some weird problems with
Yes. Some strange little.
accessories,
Weird quirks.
Yes.
but that's all diesel stuff, which we're learning, and we'll get to that later. But
It is also a 2000 bus.
true. So it's
So
20
it's
years old.
20 years
it's
old.
older than Tyler and.
Yeah.
Okay, so we think that Paul told us that it was an Allison 2000 series transmission. He just said that off the top of his head, and I'm not sure. So we're a little quandary. We don't know exactly for sure right now because one of the gentlemen on the Skoolie.net, I can't remember his username, but he has helped many bus owners out and looks up the VIN number. And the VIN number, according to the manufacturer International, was manufactured with a Allison 545. That could be not as good news. Everybody says they're a terrible transmission. Well, it got us from New Mexico with no issues. And it doesn't seem like the transmission is an issue right now. I thought maybe the 545s don't engine brake you going down a hill, or maybe, I don't know what the problems are, because it did great. We're happy
going across the
I'm sure we'll
flat
find
desert.
out, though.
Yeah, so we'll find out, we'll figure out more on that later, but whatever we got is working well. Okay, we're supposed to rate the drive back home.
Oh, how? Rate it how?
Well, so we
review
buy
it.
a bus. We dropped
Okay.
off our rental car. This is our only transportation.
So our experience going home
Yes.
was an interesting
In a
one.
bus that
It was
we
an
just
interesting
bought.
one. Yes. very
One
dusty.
thing we didn't think about, I didn't really worry about it. I hadn't thought about, does the bus have air conditioning? Our build will include air conditioning for
Kyle, however.
everything else.
Kyle, however, was concerned about whether the bus had air conditioning.
Yes, and
He was
that's
thinking
already
ahead.
visibly obvious in the first video.
Yes.
And so turns out it doesn't have air conditioning.
No.
Why do you need air conditioning in New Mexico? Come on. Well, anyway, it's a school bus. It doesn't have air conditioning. As far as the engine's concerned, that's probably a good thing, less wear and tear. However, passenger comfort going through Blythe, California at 121 degrees outside.
degrees was unpleasant. So luckily we had the forethought to go to the store and get massive tons of water and some towels. And
Right.
that's what saved us. Were water-soaked towels.
Well, we knew,
In the video.
I had thought ahead, and thought, worst case scenario, the bus blows up and the engine stops
Oh.
working. And we're
Not
stuck at the side of the road.
Blows up, hopefully. It didn't.
Hopefully it doesn't
That's the
blow
worst.
up.
This is the worst case scenario. So, my plan was there's nothing we can do to ensure that the bus is all.
No, do we get a guest appearance?
Yes, we do.
Guest appearance. We actually were just
Review
talking
it.
about how you were desperate for
Scale
air
of 1 to
conditioner.
10.
So, Kyle, when
you
we
wanna
drove
be
our
in the
bus
video or no?
from New Mexico to California, how was it?
Scale of 1 to 10, I put it at a solid 3.
And why is that? Share with us.
Well, what was it, like 120?
121.
And we had no insulation.
Well, we had insulation, it just wasn't good.
I might as well not been there. So
And-
it was just miserable.
Yes.
Oh yeah, the floor was not insulated, and I noticed that because
right.
the floor soaked up the heat, and all it was is steel and then a little
5mm layer.
yeah, some tiny little bit of rubber like this, and all it did was radiate heat up from the highway. So for me, I found my feet had to be on the ground driving because it doesn't have cruise control. Who'd have known? Someone had thrown away a floor mat that we've just found in a parking lot. I'm like, oh, there we go. But that saved my feet.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I sarcastically joked about you taking it, and then you did.
What was
Yep.
the one thing you were so desperate for on the drive home?
Air conditioning.
Air
Air
conditioning.
I mean,
Yes.
like seats that didn't hurt to sit in after a while would have also been nice.
I mean, they
It
weren't
was kind of
terrible.
nice because you could sprawl on them though.
Yeah,
It would
so-
have been
so-
cool if it wasn't so loud.
Well,
It
and
was
we
pretty
kind of
loud,
thought.
too. We didn't anticipate that, but
My thinking was
Just
there would
overall
be
not fun.
room to lay down in the aisles, but there wasn't because
One
school bus
foot.
aisles are stinking narrow.
It's
Yeah.
1 foot, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's
pretty
terrible.
narrow. It's
So
pretty narrow.
they're narrower than I remember.
But it was nice getting to stretch out because you couldn't do that
Yeah.
in the car that we rented.
We brought a nice air mattress that I had thought would go on the floor, but it's too big for the floor, so they used it to block the sun.
We were also going to use it as like a cross piece between the benches, as like a bed in air quotes, but
That did not work out.
we didn't do that because it was too hot.
Yeah.
So there were a
It's
lot
okay.
of
We had our cooler, we had some ice, we had wet towels. It got us through.
right. So again, my planning for this trip across the desert on a horse with no name was that we would have water.
Yes.
So we had two 48 packs of Walmart water and like 5 extra gallons. We calculated it for us to all survive in the shade, but with nothing else for a couple of days with water. So I figured someone's going to drive by us. It's an interstate, for goodness sake. So
It was
we did not have to
uncomfortable.
stretch that.
But it was an interesting experience. So
Yes. So we were safe.
glad we did it.
Plus, she had contact with people and let them know where we were and where we along the road. So
Yeah, we had the surprisingly good service the entire way.
Yeah, we actually did on the way home. The route that we took, which
we took the northern route.
was
We went out
yeah,
the
I don't
southern
remember the
route.
freeway, but
Yeah.
it was the northern route, so lots of traffic out there, and we only ran into one issue
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the way back where we had to stop.
Oh, well, so there's this super
We had to
hill.
stop.
It's like came back to 10 or something, but there's a super big hill in somewhere near Vegas or something. I forget where it is, but there's this really long hill, and our bus started beeping at us on the way up, and it was overheating. And we were like, oh no! So we pulled off, and I didn't know what to do, but it turns out all you got to do is let it cool down for a little
Just
bit.
wait, yeah. we
Yeah,
did.
it was an issue that semi drivers were
There were
having.
several.
Yeah, we were
semis
not the
also.
only large diesel vehicle
Yes.
needing to pull over
Yes.
and cool off. So
Yeah,
So I
there was
think that was a
a
common
rest stop right
occurrence.
there as well.
yeah, so
they knew it was an issue.
yeah, we were not alone, and I don't blame the bus. I blame 120 degrees.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
and a massive heat. So I
Yeah.
think we waited maybe 30 minutes, and then
Yeah.
it was fine.
just
There was nothing. We should have just sat there and waited and let it cool off.
Yeah.
So lesson learned.
Yep. And then, shortly after that, we ran into lots of smoke from the
Oh, yeah.
fire.
Yeah, there were all the fires,
California
was
fires.
and this thing is not
It
airtight.
was the one
So
up in San Bernardino.
yeah,
Yeah.
we got to witness.
The one that was started by a
We
gender reveal party.
Oh yeah, we saw flames on the mountainside.
Yeah.
So
And it was hard to breathe, so that was the point we had to put all the windows up and suffer with, with
Wet-
no
wet
air.
towels
No
over our
ventilation. No
And,
air venting.
Yeah, it was actually pretty tough to breathe for that short little bit.
Right.
But we got through that part.
Right.
And then we were only, an hour and a half away from home at that point.
Yeah. So we had planned. Tyler had actually thought of several interesting things we could have done on the way on our drive home, but the heat said no.
Yes.
And we
Yeah.
said Roger that. So we just drove straight home.
Yeah.
We did stop for one night to shower and get cold water.
Oh,
and,
we did do that. Yep.
Yeah.
but we
Don't even remember where that was.
we didn't want to waste dark hours
Oh,
either.
that was in Phoenix.
Yeah.
I think that was in Phoenix, Arizona. We stopped all the way back.
Oh, because we left the same way we got to New Mexico. Because we got there at noon and we left at 2. Because we wanted to get back. So anyway, so we had our whole deal was we had a master plan and we had to improvise a
And
little
it was
bit.
fun.
No big deal.
It was actually fun. As uncomfortable as it was at times.
It was
fun.
at least a 3.
It was our according to Kyle.
I thought he was going to say a negative number. But
I actually was waiting for the negative number 2, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'll take a 3.
So yeah, an hour and a half. The last little bit was easy day. Everybody was, because we were back in decent 100-degree weather.
Yeah, it was still warm.
Poway
We
and
chose
all
the
that
hottest weekend of the year.
We did. Choose the hottest weekend.
Yeah, nice
But
choice.
that's okay. So then in the last little bit, well actually on the whole drive home, we're trying to figure out where we're going to park the bus.
Not the whole drive, but when we.
Oh,
we
the whole
California.
drive, some of us were
Oh.
trying to
Yeah.
figure out where we were actually going. We didn't have storage set up in the neighborhood that we live in. We can't store a bus. We don't have RV parking on our property.
Yeah, and San Diego
So-
has lots of laws about
Lots of
not
laws.
leaving vehicles on the streets.
Yep.
So you're not allowed to park an RV on the street between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m.
Yep.
But you can get a permit to park an oversized
overnight.
vehicle
Yes.
overnight.
Yes.
But they'll let you do that 70 times a year.
Yep.
So we have that calculated out to park it here on the weekends until
Which is
we're
really the
done
only
with the
time.
major work.
We have to work on it. But there was no storage. There were no storage facilities with spaces available
Yeah,
for a bus.
we have been on the waiting list at our local friendly military installation, Miramar Air Station, which has great, awesome RV parking.
Yes.
And we're on the waiting list for that, but we have not gotten it yet.
Access, no.
So we didn't know where to park.
Yes.
We had thought, well, Walmart's in fact, we didn't know what to do with it the night we got home.
No.
So we
We
parked
wanted
here.
to stay legal.
Because you can park here during the
During
day.
Yeah.
In our neighborhood, but we didn't know what to do. So we were actually at our wit's end and finally came up with a Lowe's, our local Poway Lowe's.
Yes.
I called their manager and they're like,
Shout out
oh,
to Lowe's.
sure, you can stay the night, just bring me some pizza tomorrow. And I said, okay, what time do you want your pizza? He said, I was kidding about the pizza. So yes, he said, actually he said ice cream because it was a hot weekend.
Oh. Did he? Because you told me it was pizza.
Yeah.
I thought it was ice cream.
But
Whatever.
that's the true story.
That's okay. It was pizza.
Whatever. It was a joke lie. But actually, we did go try to find the manager the
I
next
love
morning,
listening to your stories.
and the manager was not there, and so we just didn't give them anything. But we did say thank you, and we appreciate you.
That was awesome of them to let us do that.
There's some website that we're not going to plug it because it didn't work.
No.
The concept was if you have extra space, you can rent it out, and someone can park their vehicle there. So we tried
with
it.
RV parking on their property.
Yeah, but the one guy that actually talked to us said, that's going to cost you $400 a month. And we're not interested.
No.
So,
And it wasn't that close.
no. And I had to tell him beforehand every time we wanted to move it because he had to shuffle stuff around for his 40 feet of parking space. So, no thanks.
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
So how did
Okay.
where did we end up finding
So-
a place?
We got
For now.
creative and started thinking about different possibilities.
Oh, I asked the local bowling alley, which has been closed since COVID, if I could
Oh,
rent
we
some
couldn't
space
get a
in their
hold of
parking
them.
lot, but they never answered me,
Yeah,
so
yeah, because I don't think anybody was there.
no one ever parks
But
there.
I have a business up in the Rancho Bernardo area, and it's at the Rancho Bernardo courtyard, and they are fantastic, amazing people, and very accommodating to their tenants. And I asked if we could park the bus in their parking lots. And because of COVID, there's not a lot of cars parked there currently anyway. So because the lot was mostly empty and not a lot of people are doing business there, they allowed us to park it there for now
So they've saved
no,
our bacon while
yes.
we're waiting on the military.
while we were waiting on the military. So
Thank you, courtyard.
thank you, RV Courtyard.
So that's where the bus lives, and we bring it down here. every weekend to work on it, and this is what we've got done so far.